like every day you are a little bit stronger or a little bit weaker. Which one are you going to be? And you make that decision by what you do now. You know, are you going to have bigger muscles tomorrow or smaller muscles tomorrow? Well, it depends what you do today. Fine. Yeah. But really, in the now, all that matters is your next well thought out step. Beliefs can come out in comments that we make, in negative self-talk, in behavior patterns. And whilst you know that you're doing these things, you don't relate it to that one core belief that is driving all of it.
And then we're forever evolving. Every day we're learning something. If we're, as you said, intentional, if we're self-aware, if we're doing that inner work and inner healing, if we're introspecting, we are going to be a different person from one day to the next. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the same person I was last week. I'm evolving every single day, and I love who I'm becoming because you're finding out more about yourself. You know, you are rediscovering some magical parts every time you do more healing.
Yeah, and that ties in very nicely to a quote we've got, actually, that the only way we survive is you continuously transform into something new. And that's basically what we're saying, isn't it? You know, like every day you are a little bit stronger or a little bit weaker. Which one are you going to be? And you make that decision by what you do now. You know, are you going to have bigger muscles tomorrow or smaller muscles tomorrow? Well, it depends what you do today. You know, if you go and work out, lift some weights, your muscles will be bigger tomorrow. If you just lay on the couch, then they're going to waste away. So that's what I think people get overwhelmed as well, don't they? And overwhelm is, once again, focusing on the future, focusing on all the things that you've got to do. It's like, don't focus on all the things, be aware of them, put them on a calendar if there's a deadline. But really, in the now, all that matters is your next well thought out step, isn't it?
That's in atomic habits as well. Like, you know, we get so, this happened to me as well, and I've seen it with people. We get so fixated on the big outcome. And we're like, oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? How am I ever going to be this person when I'm still embodying my old self? But you choose the tiny habits. You can't jump to that. You can't jump to the next level. You can't jump to the top. It's too overwhelming. It's too scary. But take very small steps every day. Change a habit every single day to become the person who will achieve that goal. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can't be expected as the old self to do that thing that the new person is going to do. You have to become that new person by doing the tiny steps every single day to improve yourself. 1% every day will get you so far. You know what I mean? And as I said before, break the baby steps into milli steps. Make it as easy as possible once you still move forward. And you, like, you know, as you said with the exercise, you know, if you go and put weights tomorrow, you're not going to be, you know, the Hulk in a week, but you're going to slowly but surely get there after a little bit every day. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You're going to build up to that. And, you know, that's the beauty of embodying it. Who do you identify yourself as? You know, if you're still identifying yourself as that old person, like for me, it was the drinker, the smoker, the partier. You know, I was in that identity. And even when I gave up the drink and the fags, I was like, I'm off the fags, I'm off the drink. That is still identified as a smoker and drinker. Now I identify as a non-smoker or a non-drinker. You know, that's the difference. But if I still said I'm off the fags, that's still giving me a window to go back on the fags. You know, you have to change that. I started doing exercise every day, and it still made me go, oh Jesus, I hate doing this. But then when I read Atomic Habits, I was like, no, I identify as a person who exercises. Now I get up in the morning and it's easy. You know what I mean? I'm not aversion. I don't have an aversion to it anymore because I identify as someone who exercises rather than somebody who's lazy who didn't exercise today. Do you get me? Yeah. So that's it. Slowly embody that person, one step at a time.
Yeah. So transformation doesn't happen overnight. You become a product of your habits. You know, so the habits is where you need to look, and what can hold you back is belief. So it's deep beliefs that you might be aware of, but actually not fully aware of. So beliefs can come out in comments that we make, in negative self-talk, in behavior patterns. And whilst you know that you're doing these things, you don't relate it to that one core belief that is driving all of it. Coaches are really great actually for helping you drill down and uncover what is the belief that's underneath all of that that's holding you back. So
you're reminding me of the Henry Ford quote. If you say you can or you can't, you're right. It's something like that.
I love that
one. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's it. If you say I can't change, oh my God, yes you can. In fairness, you're born as a pure person who changed because of learned behavior and your surroundings. So you change from something real into something false. So you can change from that falseness into something real again. You know what I mean? Saying you can't, you're effectively saying you won't. You're refusing, because every single person has the ability to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why it's really important. You have to acknowledge that and accept that doubt will creep in. That's because your mind is set to try and drag you back. So you have to be intentional and train your mind to think differently. And even you know, like, even I do a lot of meditation and I do breath work, I do all sorts of things, do affirmations, but still occasionally you get the both thoughts. And because I'm very practiced at focusing on, you know, the positive, that comes natural to me. If you've not been on a growth journey for very long, you might be more used to taking note of the things that could go wrong or the negative. So things that we can do to work on that is reframing. So like I think we said before, you can say, instead of saying I can't, you can acknowledge that you find it difficult, you know, but be progressive in how you say it, because I can't is just it, isn't it? If you can't, there's no going anywhere. Whereas the truth is that we can learn anything, you know. It just takes time, and it might not be something that you are naturally good at, but
practice,
it doesn't mean
will make you good at anything.
Yeah. So I think there was some study, and apparently, is it 8? I can't remember. I think it's about 18 minutes every day on a skill in a year will make you better than 95% of other people. And when you think of it like that, that's not even that long, is it? You know, if you could, 18 minutes isn't long. If you can be consistent every day and do that thing or that habit that is moving you, or learning that skill that's going to move you to the next level, you could be a completely different person in a year, can't you? So reframing is a really great tool. Affirmations are really great. So do you want to explain how you can turn a negative thought into
like I've done this before. Like I was the most pessimistic person in the world. If it could go wrong, you know, my motto was, it's Murphy's Law, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. I was just so anxious, I was so negative, I just didn't have I lived in a grey bubble is what I did. And I had to reframe my mind. I had to literally, for every negative thought that came into my head, I replaced it with three positive thoughts. And I did this every single time it happened for over 30 days. This is a great way to bring positivity into your mind. But even, as you said, affirmations, the power of I am. Say it as if it's already happened. So before I became a coach, I was like, I am a successful coach. I am happy. I am healthy. I am wealthy. Say these things every day, even if you don't believe them. Then you actually, this is the thing, we have been brainwashed into believing falsehood, lies, you know, conditioned behavior, this negative lack mentality, poverty consciousness. That was brainwashing for generations. We actually have to rewire our brain into believing the truth. And reprogramming meditations are really good for this. But like, this is it. Even say it every day. I am wealthy. I am happy. I am a successful whatever you want to be. I have a loving relationship. Keep saying it every day as if it's in the present moment. And this will manifest it into your life because you will start to believe it. And if you believe it, you can achieve it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And affirmations, you can say affirmations without doing meditation. but the best times is either in meditation. I use binaural beat meditations that put me in the same brainwave state as where normally people are in naturally, when either when they just very first fall asleep or when they just first come out of sleep. So if you don't look at your phone for the first 15 minutes when you first wake up, that you are still in the state where your subconscious is super impressionable, and so they're the best times to do it. But it's better to do it, you know, any time of the day than not at all. Affirmations, it sounds silly, but this stuff really works. It
Like
really does.
every morning before I even pick up my phone or get out of bed, I lie there and I say thank you. I say thank you for everything that I'm grateful for. My dogs, my home, my car, my health, my career, you know, all of it. I say thank you. That's what I start myself with every day. You know, I'm starting to fall back to sleep, like, and I wake back up and I'm like, I thank you for this, thank you for this, and this gets me out of it. You know, and it helps me get out of bed. And I even just say thank you for this day. This is going to be a good day. You're going to believe it. You know, and your mindset is going to be different. But if you're waking up all groggy and you're like, oh, this is going to be a shit day, it's going to be a fucking shit day.
Yeah. Look out the window and complain about the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So it is.
Yeah.
It's
You're
all about
setting yourself
changing
on a path, aren't you, for the day?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it.
And I think also, like, our subconscious is always listening. I don't think people realize how powerful the words that they use, particularly around themselves, affects them. So, you know, I used to do it. I probably still do it sometimes. You know, where I'm stupid, or this when I drop something, or I've forgotten something, and it's like an affirmation, but a negative one that you're giving yourself by talking about yourself in
It's
that.
something we really do have to learn. And I used to have that happen as well. And I used to see my dad as well. If he'd do something wrong, he'd actually hit himself in the head. And I used to get so triggered by this. I was like, please stop doing that. You're literally effectively punishing your inner child for doing something wrong. And yeah, you're right. We used to call ourselves stupid. It's an accident. And I try to enlighten my person now. Like, if I do something wrong, I'm like, oopsie, you know, say something silly or, you know, lighthearted to kind of lighten the mood. Because if you call yourself stupid, or well, if anyone calls you stupid, or if you call yourself stupid over and over again, you're going to become stupid because you're going to believe it.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. It's something we do need to unlearn. And I thankfully I've unlearned it myself, but I hate when people do that. You know, stop being so hard on yourself. Stop talking negatively about yourself. Because even saying it, you're bringing it into fruition. You know, that's the power of self-talk. Or being around people who speak negatively all the time. It's going to drain your energy. You're going to inherit that kind of language, and you're going to speak to yourself like that as well. So important to speak highly of yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
speak to yourself like, and if you don't love yourself, then you should speak to yourself how you would speak to a loved one, you know, because you should love yourself. And by speaking to yourself with compassion and love, and if that involves, you know, taking yourself out of yourself for a minute and imagining you were your child or whatever, or you know, a partner that you love or whatever, so that you're able to give yourself the compassion that you deserve. You know, we spend the most time that we spend with anyone is ourselves. So
exactly,
you know,
you're right. Like, would you speak to somebody, a friend of yours, how you speak to yourself? You wouldn't. If your friend did something wrong, you're going to be compassionate. You're going to be caring. You're going to nurture them, and you're going to encourage them forward. But yet, if you do it, you're the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
It's not fair. We are still human beings as well, and it is so powerful how we speak to ourselves. It really is.
Yeah. So we have to give ourselves permission, I think, because you are allowed to grow and evolve, and you're capable of stepping into the life that you want. You've just got to believe it's possible. And one little thing that you can do to sort of say goodbye to the old you, because I think we have a lot invested in our past. You know, there's a lot of memories, good and bad. There's a lot of things that may not be good for us, but we've enjoyed them, but we know that that's not going to, the person that we want to transform into wouldn't do those things. then it's a good thing to formally just say goodbye to it, you know. And the way you can do that is to write a letter to yourself, your old self, um the old self that feels stuck or unsure or as a people pleaser, all those things that you want to let go of, or just the hurt, you know. That it's a good thing for giving yourself permission to let go of the hurt. That so many people carry hurt from the past, and often the person who hurt you, or the, you know, it might be a situation, but the person that hurt you won't be thinking about it, most likely, and it only stays alive in you because you give it energy, you know. And so all you're doing is hurting yourself in that. Now, I'm not saying
that's comes to self-forgiveness. I did a video on that the other day. We actually hold on to the past longer. We might actually even forgive the personal situation before we forgive ourselves. And that thing still has control of us if we don't forgive ourselves. And we do hold a lot of self-punishment and a self-resentment and self-anger towards things that happened to us. So yeah, writing that letter, forgiving your past self, thanking them for getting you to where you are, and releasing them because, you know, they no longer exist effectively.
Yeah, and finishing with words of encouragement to the new you. Yeah. You know, what things would you say to somebody who was on the journey that you're going on, that you would give to somebody else with compassion, you know? Because how we speak to ourselves is so important. And I know, like, it's once you get a hold of that, and you understand that, and you're very careful and intentional about how you speak to yourself, it changes everything. And I'm talking about from my point of view, like my experience. I historically suffered from depression for pretty much all my life, you know, like bad depression. I was a self-harmer at 12 years old. I went through bouts of better and worse and better and worse. But there was always a level of depression that I was dealing with. And it was largely about how I didn't value myself, how I spoke to myself. And, you know, now my mind wasn't a very nice place to be. And I spent a lot of time in my mind. And now my mind's a pretty nice place to be. I quite like hanging out there, you know, because I'm kind to myself. I'm compassionate. I encourage myself. I believe that I can. So, and it just changes everything. It just opens up a whole new world of what you're capable of doing if you're just telling yourself that something other than you can't.
Yeah. That's it. I have a similar past to what you have, and I can relate to that. You know, I have depression and anxiety, that living in that bubble your whole life, and you just don't see a way out. But when you do when you get that shake-up, finally, well, you get many shake-ups, but when the actual shake-up comes in for you to change, you know, it is so transformative. Like, to see that there is a light out of that darkness. You know, I keep getting the image of the caterpillar and the butterfly. The caterpillar has to go through a great deal of darkness before it can become a butterfly. And then we all do. We all have to go through that hermit mode, that cocoon phase, to become that beautiful butterfly. You know what I mean? And it's amazing to finally get there, because you know as well as I do, when you're in that cocoon, you don't see a light. You really don't, and you don't even think there's a possibility of a light. But if the likes of you and me can get out and actually get our wings and become butterflies, it can be possible for anyone. You know, it really can. We've gone through so much trauma in our past, from childhood up to relationships, you know, depression and anxiety. If we can break out of that, anyone can.
Yeah, there's nothing special about us apart from our mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we all have that ability.
Anyone can learn it, you know? Yeah.